We need to really take a good long look at what's happening in our society and stop thinking about just the Second Amendment. We need to look at criminal activity around these guns.
We have an over-proliferation of guns in the city of Chicago and the county of Cook. We have a gun problem, and we have had a gun problem for a really long time.
That is the Chicago Police Superintendent, Larry Snelling, followed by outgoing Cook County State's Attorney, Kim Foxx, during a news conference announcing charges against the individual police believe shot and killed Chicago police officer Enrique Martinez. Obviously, Chicago police mourning the loss of the officer, a courageous hero, they say, who protected our city until the very end. We stand heartbroken alongside his family and loved ones in grief. We will never forget. So, end of watch for police officer Enrique Martinez. And interesting to hear yesterday some of the details on this case. Of course, video spread on social media of the incident, which is hard to hear, especially the volley of gunfire that erupted. And I'm just gonna show a little bit of this and hear a little bit of the gunfire. Stop reaching, you hear, and then all of a sudden. So clearly, pretty alarming to hear that rate of gunfire in Chicago. Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling announcing the charges against the suspect they had in custody.
On Monday night, our department and our city lost a hero when Officer Enrique Martinez was shot and killed protecting the city of Chicago. Today is the first step in bringing his killer to justice. 23-year-old Darian McMillan has been charged with one felony count of first-degree murder of a police officer, one felony count of first-degree murder, one felony count of attempt murder of a police officer, one felony count of residential burglary, one felony count of unlawful use of a weapon, machine gun, one felony aggravated unlawful use of a weapon by felon. Immediately following the shooting.
Pretty wild to see the booking photo of the suspect here, Darian McMillan. I'm not sure what's going on there. Is there like some kind of huffing thing? Is that paint? It's unbelievable. But as you heard with the rate of gunfire, that's caused significant concern, and even the law enforcement calling it a machine gun because it was a handgun that was equipped with a switch. A device that allows for a handgun to not be semi-automatic anymore and to be fully automatic. Here's more from Larry Snelling yesterday.
We all need to be outraged at the violent offenders who are creating endless cycles of trauma in our communities. We need to be outraged at the proliferation of guns that are killing our residents, our children, and our first responders.
So he also talks about, the proliferation of guns, which we all should be outraged over, he says. And we'll hear more about the issue that law enforcement in Chicago believes is a problem. But just notes that this suspect reportedly was out on electronic monitoring pre-trial release. Illinois has the pre-trial release, pre-trial fairness, the part of the Safety Act, where we don't have cash bond anymore. You can't bail yourself out of jail for certain offenses. If you are a lower level criminal defendant, you don't have any jail time. You have pre-trial release pending trial. So this individual was apparently out on pre-trial release for separate crimes in a different county, and reportedly cut off his ankle monitor to go out and commit more crimes. But Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx said that the real problem is the proliferation of firearms.
I have very few of these press conferences left. Let me say the thing that needs to be said that we all know in this room. We have an over-proliferation of guns in the city of Chicago and the county of Cook. We have a gun problem. And we have had a gun problem for a really long time.
And she continued to talk more about this problem, she says, is at the center of these cases.
Provide around them. But there's a very unique problem that we have in Cook County, and that is a unique problem about the overproliferation of guns. And until we take decisive action on ensuring that those guns are not flooding our streets, that we're talking about a machine gun here, then we will continue to see the devastation that we see at the rates that we see it. Because we have more guns on our street than I believe that we have people who need to hold them. And until we do something about that, we will continue to have press conferences like these, which are heartbreaking and tragic. And they will continue because our law enforcement partners will continue to run into the face of bullets. But we have to stop the bullets in the first place, which means that we need reasonable, common sense gun legislation nationally.
I would imagine, no, others would say, no, the reasonable common sense thing is to take low-level criminals that have repeat offenses and hold them behind bars so that they don't get out on pretrial and go and commit more crimes with handguns that are equipped with a switch. So you'll hear a lot more about this, I imagine, especially as we go into later on this month where the city of Chicago suing Glock because they allege Glock allows for their firearms to be equipped with these switches that Glock does not manufacture. And that lawsuit has the city suing Glock, and we'll hear more about that in Cook County Court. So again, interesting to kind of hear what law enforcement in Chicago saying is the problem, saying it's proliferation of guns, but we've heard from other people saying it's, the crime issue is because of no cash bail and people getting out pre-trial for lower level offenses with a sense of empowerment to go and commit more crimes. So which is it? Or is it a combination of both? How do you tackle it? Larry Snelling, the police chief in Chicago, was asked a question about the outcome of Tuesday's election and what that means for the issue around the Second Amendment.
We've just had an election. We've just had a new president who has been very strong on Second Amendment rights. We have a Senate that is now turned Republican, and quite possibly the House will as well. Does that make your job harder when it comes to what Madam State's Attorney called a over-proliferation of guns on the streets of Chicago?
Well, listen, the State's Attorney Foxx is 100% right. The number of guns that we gather every year, in excess of 12,000. The number of gun arrests that we make on a regular is just outrageous. And if you think about it, if we make 5,000-6,000 gun arrests, that's 5,000 to 6,000 possible deadly encounters that police officers have.
So he goes on to talk about the proliferation of firearms and kind of indicates that cops are outgunned on the streets of Chicago.
It's hard to say that officers are responsible for saving lives on a daily basis when we know that there are weapons out there that, quite honestly, officers are at a disadvantage of. So we've got to do a much better job as a whole, collaboratively. What we see standing here right now is collaboration, and we've been doing this all year, working with the state's attorney to get charges approved on those people who have committed violent acts, robberies, murders.
What about those
and
who may, committed a lower level offense, multiple of them, and then ends up getting released pre-trial? Is there going to be any change of philosophy around that, or is it going to be more just focusing on trying to what gun control advocates say is, quote, common sense gun legislation? Last few moments here from Larry Snelling yesterday. And let's go.
We need to really take a good long look at what's happening in our society and stop thinking about just the Second Amendment. We need to look at criminal activity around these guns.
So,
Eric Hong with ABC
again,
7.
this idea of stop worrying about the Second Amendment, or stop worrying just about the Second Amendment. Others are going to push back and say, no, the Second Amendment's there to protect people, law-abiding citizens, from overreach by the government. Regardless, though, thoughts with the family of police officer Enrique Martinez. End of watch November 4th, 2024. We'll clearly hear more about this conversation as well. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell with America's Talking Network, and wake up each and every weekday morning with us here with Illinois in Focus Daily.